Why exactly is asset management so time-consuming and so complicated? It really comes down to two issues. The first is communication, and the second is distribution. On the communication side, you start typically with a planning or purchasing process, and this is where your assets are first identified within your organization. You might, for example, from a hardware perspective, know that you bought a certain number of Dell Latitude laptops. And perhaps you've got some model numbers and other information that all goes along with a purchase order and invoicing and lots of other documentation. On the software side, you might buy a certain number of licenses for a piece of software or a software suite, let's say Adobe Creative. You know how many copies you've bought, you know how many individual seats you're licensed for, and so forth. But then you've got the reality side, the technological side, and this tends to communicate things a little bit differently. When technicians sit down to inventory a machine, they don't see the exact same information. Their inventory tools might pull back something that says Dell is the manufacturer, but perhaps they're seeing an internal model code or something else. Instead of a nice friendly thing like latitude and a model number, they might see something like LT7524M/1. For the software side, they're typically seeing individual applications. They see that there's a copy of Photoshop out there. They see that there's a copy of Dreamweaver. They might even see there's a copy of Flash floating around out there. And sometimes that information doesn't even match up with what they think it would. For example, some versions of Flash report themselves as having been produced by Macromedia because it was before Adobe bought them up. So sometimes none of this information can actually match or map back to what happened in purchasing. And this is one of the big communication reasons why asset management becomes so difficult. The other reason is distribution. And quite simply, you typically have a little file cabinet with all of your purchasing information in it, but actually trying to match that up to individual computers requires you to go out to all of these widely distributed machines that are all over your network, somehow query information from them, and bring it all back to some sort of central report. Now, this is a difficult thing to do. For the first place, any type of purchasing system is already going to have all of your original purchase records all nice and centralized. And even if you're a small shop and you're just dealing with things on paper, it's all going to go in one or two file cabinets. It's easy to walk over and get your hands on the purchasing information. Matching it up to what's actually in use in your environment when you have to true up software licenses or determine what's available to be upgraded in terms of hardware, you actually have to walk out and either sneaker net it and retrieve all that information manually, or come up with tools that pull all that information together. This is why administrators spend an incredible amount of time trying to just get their hands around asset management. The technical side is distributed, and it doesn't speak the same language as the original asset purchasing side did.